Hey everybody, it's Dinosa, and back for another two reviews I've been promising to doing, but I have been getting tied up with some stuff, so I've just been extremely busy. As you can see behind me, everything's a mess. I got a door against the wall, a lot of remodeling going on. Um, Basically, I was asked to do two films by two of my other friends, and I don't know why. But we're going to start with the first one, which was called The Notebook. And with The Notebook, uh, overall, this film came out, I believe it was in 2004. It was with James Garner, which, if many of you don't know James Garner, he was the original Maverick. He's been in countless westerns. And he also he did something else besides Maverick. I mean, he did the original TV show Maverick, but he also did the one with Mel Gibson, and then he did this movie here. Now, the thing is, when I watch this movie, it's very happy, very sad. It's good emotional roller coaster. It's not what you think. See, a lot of guys look at this, even myself, was like, oh man, a chick flick. Oh, why do I gotta watch this? And it was actually really good. It was, in a way, kind of Legends of Fall. I approached it the same way. It was like, oh man, this is gonna suck. And then you watch it, you're like, whoa, this is actually pretty cool. But what was cool for me about this film is not only artistically how it was done, but also the storyline, which was a very common story that is a lot of Americans deal with. See, it's not just everywhere you go happy endings, everyone's happy thing. Sometimes endings are kind of bitter, even sad, but good, but happy. I mean, I would have to say one of the most bitterness endings. Ironically, I said this years ago, is with James Bond with George Lazenby with On Her Majesty's Secret Service. That ending was probably one of the saddest Bond endings you'd ever have, and they never topped that. And they tried to do it with Quantum. It felt flat. It was like, what? No, it didn't make any sense. But because you couldn't capture what Diana Rigg and George Lazenby did in that film. But anyway, I'm getting off subject. Anyway, the story is called The Notebook, and it takes place, I'm figuring Georgia, somewhere back east. Georgia, southern state, sweet teas, apple pie on the porch, in the swamp, moonshine. And all that fun stuff, and that's where it's kind of taking place. It stars James Garner and a few other actors and actresses. But what was most interesting about this film was it dealt with getting old. And interesting enough, there was a movie called Big Fish where it dealt with a very similar concept where a man was dying and his last wish was X, and he died, and it was the whole story, the whole concept. I caught a fish this big and was a lie, if I remember correctly. But this one actually kind of hit me home a little bit because it talked about dementia, and I've seen people with dementia, and this film really captured it very well to what kind of issues you're dealing with dementia, such as 1 minute. But you see, in the film, they kind of misrepresented. They said dementia, but they also this is more Alzheimer's. They said like where they're losing their memory in 1 minute, they flash in and out. So basically the whole story was a coming of age story and about a man named Noah who meets this girl named Allie, which at first she doesn't like him, then he keeps working at it, and she eventually does like him. But then, due to the events of her parents pulling her in one direction and he has to go in another, and her mother running interception of mail, which is, parents said it's the most jacked up thing you can ever do. Intercept mail, intercept communication, such as that. When you knew someone was in love, the guy didn't really do anything wrong. He left. He let her go. And he wrote letters. He never wronged her, didn't do anything, but parents seem to know best, but intercepting mail, that's not cool, because that's just lies. At that point, you're just lying to your kid. You're interfering with their life, and this, oh, I'm thinking for your best interest. No, you're not. You're thinking for yourself. You don't want to be married just like some poor jackass. But then at the same time, if you're not a parent, like myself, you're not a parent, you can't really talk that crap too much, because you would do the same thing. And it's hypocritical. It's, oh, well, we're stand up and upright and all that. No, BS. When I was in high school, one of the most hypocritical, one of the most insane political things ever happened to me, that I've never heard of another school about some rule that was invented. And I was told, just don't shut up, don't cause problems. And that's kind of what this movie's about. But anyway, I'm getting off subject again. What it talks about is Noah and Allie, and how they have their little romance, a summer fling. Now, what I will say is the film sets, the cars, the clothes, really, they nailed it. They did a great job on this film. I'm sad this film didn't do as well as it did. They spent a lot of money on these, and they must have gotten some restoration cars out, or like bumper cars. I have no idea where they got bumper cars that look like the 40s out. I'm clueless how they did that, but I'm sure that someone had them. And the Ferris wheels have been around ages, so you can play those out as much as you want. But they had a carnival. They met, and then Noah's friend, set him and her friend up on a date, and they went to movies and watched this old movie. I think it was State Farm. I'm not 100% sure. For some reason, Hollywood always got this thing about doing State Farm, and I think this goes with MASH, but that's another story. And they watched the film. They're like, oh, whatever. And then they tell the other two couple, go away, we'll walk. And then they do this thing where they lie in the street. Now, in that time, in that era, when you didn't have that kind of traffic, that was very possible back then. Because you could just stare at the light change, because no car is going to come. Well, here we are, later on, 1940s, sure enough, car will come. And I loved it. And now, what it reminded me of is the movie, The Program, where some kids did that too, but then some kids did that in reality, and they pulled that scene from all the releases of The Program, which was just basically another teenage football thing, and about like football and the program and all that. But interesting. I don't know where this fascination with lying in the street, with cars going on. I don't know where that came from, but whatever. I must have not been into cool people about lying in the street with cars coming. So eventually, Allie's and Noah's romance blossoms, but then the parents want to meet Noah, and what you showed in this film was a contrast to styles. Now, in Noah's family, you saw them like getting along with African Americans, poor people, no problem. Okay, whereas on the opposite side, Allie's main people were the Colonel Sanders of the Georgia thing, and Miami thing, the Spanish Inquisition, and all that, and it's just the long live the Dixie kind of thing, and that's kind of the vibe you got. And unbelievably, a lot of that still exists in those parts of the country. Georgia and North Carolina. Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, I think, a lot of them still exist. Those southern mentality. Above Florida, below New York. It's amazing, but it does. So they had their dinners and contrast, and her mother didn't like Noah at all. She's like, this guy is trash, why even waste your time with him? And then this led to a big argument, because Noah was taking her to the house what he wants to buy, and he was essentially trying to propose, but couldn't find a way to do it. So eventually Allie's like, I want you to make love to me right now. And she's like talking, and freaking out and everything. And he's like, oh, you want me to do this, but you keep talking. What's the problem? And And then during this whole chaos, the dad is stressed because the daughter's not back. It's 2 in the morning, and he's ready. Now you got to understand, this is 1940s time, so someone not being back by 2 in the morning, or at least not being at the house, maybe on the porch talking, is cause to be alarmed back then. Not now, but back then, oh, big time. It was like, what's going on? Because it was not heard of for young women at that time to be out like that late, but she was. Anyway, she does her thing. Well, they try to. I don't think they actually did. And say, but this is a story that's all being told to a lady in a nursing home, and I didn't mention in the beginning. It's told by a lady in a nursing home by James Garner, who James Garner happens to be Noah, and this is a spoiler. Allie happens to be the lady. And she has dementia / Alzheimer's, and Noah tells her this story, and he goes through and tells her this whole story about romance and everything, and the whole drama, how the war broke out, how they came back from the war, and the big split was when they had the argument. Noah sent the letters. She never got the letters, so she never responded. Because the mother intercepted the letters. Then later on, Allie finds that, oh, my mom asked Noah, and he's like, I did. And then she asked her mother, what the hell, where are the letters? And she gave him the letters and said, you have to make a choice here. So, that's kind of what it is. The hardest subject, the love story is quite common. It's like, oh, I'm on this, on that. It's when Harry met Sally, oh, I love you. It's the same concept. But you see, what the interesting approach actually about this was the Notebook. And the whole story of the Notebook was about their love. The reason why the Notebook was actually written by Allie, who happened to be this lady who was suffering from Alzheimer's. And at the end, by suffering those dementia, so James Garner comes every day, reads her this book. And it's like reliving the love story and everything. She doesn't realize that it's in front of him is her husband. And that's what it gets like. Dementia and Alzheimer's, it gets that bad. And it's not reversible. And that's the sad thing. And this is another thing I hate about nursing homes is they're not homes, they're death camps. I mean, in my opinion, it's... You put me in one of those, you just might as well pull a gun to my head and be done with it. Because I've seen plenty of them in my time, and there's sometimes you need them. And like in the case of my father, when he was hurt, he needed recovery time that only a nurse. That made sense. But to make a nursing home